let's go out to Dove Valley and talk to Troy Renck over the phone. Troy covers the Broncos,
tell you
the
what,
NFL.
He's not paying attention
for the Denver
to the
Post.
Rockies either.
Troy, we wanted to have you back on today, obviously because of the offensive line problems with the Broncos and the Ryan Clady situation. Here's my first question to you. How much input is Peyton Manning going to have as to who the left tackle is? It is his blind side. The coaching staff and John Elway, they do listen to him periodically when it comes to personnel, comfort level, etc. How much input is Peyton going to have as to who starts at left tackle?
I don't think he would have more than the coaches. He will. I'm sure they'll ask him his opinion, and it will be taken and respected. But ultimately, he's not watching the film of the offensive line like Rick Dennison will be, or Clancy Barone, the line coach, will be. And here's the thing about Peyton Manning, guys. He never gets sacked. He's immune to sacks. He's had some of the worst offensive linemen in the league during his career play in front of him, and he never gets sacked. It's not a blindside issue for me. It's really, can they establish the run to take pressure off him, and can they keep him from getting hit after he throws? He never gets sacked. He played with an offensive line in Indianapolis one time with a left tackle who started 6 games and then never played again in the league. So that's not the issue, less for me, as much as can this line work together and establish the run and prevent him from getting hit around his feet and ankles that would cause him to miss games. But to allow him to then select the lineman, I don't think he would even feel comfortable in that. Certainly he'll give his opinion, and Rick Dennison's great about the give and take, but I can't see, maybe in the old coaching staff,
No,
yes,
Troy,
in this one, no.
I'm not saying he's going to select. I'm just asking if he's going to have input.
Well,
I would. Well, don't listen to him.
Yeah, they'll
you
ask
have to
him.
listen to him. You have to listen to
Yeah,
him.
that's what I
But
figured.
this coaching staff prides itself on coaching guys up, and you know, Lester, your relationship with Mike Shanahan, and the guys that work under Mike Shanahan are known for working 20-hour days. So they're going to be the ones that watch the film and decide, can this kid Ty Sombralo, can he do it? Are they going to have to move Chris Clark over? They're going to be the ones. But they really have guarded optimism that Ty Sombralo might be the future at that position. And if it's made, let's be honest.
I read a piece in ESPN that backs up what you've been saying, Troy, for weeks now, that Peyton Manning has been sacked 17 times last year and 21 the year before. He didn't get sacked. He gets sacked about once a game. Are we all agreed about that? He gets sacked about once a game. As Troy's pointed out to us on 2 or 3 different shows, the concern is him getting hit, not getting sacked. And ESPN wrote a piece, Troy, I'm sure you've seen it, that said, Peyton Manning provides his own pass protection because of the way he does everything. He is actually his pass protection. It's not the offensive line. Would you agree?
Actually, I'm writing. I kind of piggybacked off of that story from Football Outsiders research that he's the least pressured guy in football the last couple of years, or over the last 4 years, I believe. And that's, again, my point is he is his own line in many ways because the ball comes out in 2.3 to 2.5 seconds. The issue then is, can you get a line in front of him that prevents hits, and can you get the running game established to allow play action to work? And the other variation of this that I write about for Sunday, guys, is that it may change the offense. We may not see 3 wides a lot early in the season. They may pull an extra tackle in. That fullback suddenly might become way more important than we envision. So the emergence of Cody Latimer might be interrupted by a few weeks until they really establish who they are up front. And I do think you're going to see a little bit of change in philosophy if there's questions about the line going into the season. They're not going to just force the issue, go 3 wide, compromise protection just to do it. They're going to adjust to how this line is playing. But first and foremost, I agree with you. And second, they have to run the ball. Gary Kubiak's entire premise of offense is being good up front, running the ball. And if they don't do that, it really doesn't matter about the other stuff.
I just want to follow up on that. I have seen references about Gary Kubiak in the stretch play. I think the best running play I've ever seen was Peyton Manning early in his career, middle of his career, that stretch play in Indianapolis where he would just go out for yards. He'd move left or right 3 yards, and he'd get the ball to the running back out at the end. Are we going to see that stretch play? That's the only real stretch play I know. We haven't seen it here in 3 years that he's been here.
I do believe you'll see some variation of that, and that's a great point, Woody. Everyone says he can't run this offense. He ran a variation of his offense with Edgar and James in Indianapolis, albeit a long time ago. But Peyton Manning is considered one of the best play-action guys in the league since, Boomer Esiason would be in that group. And he also has run a variation of this with that play, with the zone read type blocking, with the, two-step handoff. So they're going to work to his strengths, and they're going to work to the offensive strengths. And you're going to see some plays that we haven't seen Peyton run here, because Gary Kubiak wants to maximize Manning, but he also still has to have his imprint on the offense. They're not running Adam Gaze's offense. They're not. They are going to run some plays that look very familiar, but at the end of the day, the running game is going to look differently. And that stretch play, I would suggest, as you are, that we're going to be some semblance of that play in this offense, because it's stretch, cutback. That's the entire zone block offense is built around a back going laterally, put his foot in the ground, and cut behind the block. So you're going to see something like that. And C.J. Anderson, as a side note, he looks great. He's cut. He's lost some weight. He's come in and carried himself like a starter. So I think there is some excitement about the running game, even if there is uncertainty about the offensive line.
He's Troy Renck of the Denver Post. All our guests are brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. Troy, I'm wondering, I hate to liken it to a death, but when somebody dies, there's usually a mourning period, 24 to 48 hours. Clady, a key part of this team, protects Peyton's blind side, a veteran, the third highest paid player on the team. Just around Dove Valley right now, is there any semblance of a woe is us mentality until they get past this?
I think there might have been the old coaching staff, and you're coming off a terrible loss to Indianapolis, and it's like, the slide has begun in earnest now. Now they're losing veterans, and this is what happens to older teams. Because of the new coaching staff and their enthusiasm and passion kind of for change, you don't sense that. That isn't the mood here. And I know exactly what you're saying, Leslie, kind of that pall that hangs over a team after a critical injury.
Right.
It was shocking because they didn't think it was much. But, in hindsight, a lot of these injuries with ACLs are non-contact. But it still surprises you. And they were shocked that it was that. They had no idea. But the reality is this, and this is a cold business of the NFL. Ryan Clady didn't play very well last year. Certainly didn't play up to his standards, number one. Secondly, they're bringing in a zone-blocking offense that he could have succeeded in because he's played it, but his foot injuries left him compromised last year, and we weren't sure what Clady we were going to see this year. Even though he made a Pro Bowl, I don't think anyone would argue that he was a Pro Bowl player last year. He wasn't, and by his own admission, he struggled. So they missed the guy because he's a professional. He's a leader, and as I wrote today, he was the kind of the cord that connected the past and future. But the reality is, as a player, they weren't exactly sure who they were getting in terms of Ryan Clady. Was he going to just be an average left tackle? And that's why, while they're disappointed for him on a personal level, there is this intrigue, and it's been accelerated, in Ty Sambralo, in this change of the offensive line. Like all these shifts they've been talking about, they're being accelerated in some case by injury now because they want to move forward kind of beyond the Peyton Manning years, and they may have to with the offensive line. So it's a bad thing, but it may not be the worst thing in the big picture if one of these guys can play. Now, if they can't, it's horrible, and you're going to look back and say the beginning of the pull of the thread of the sweater where it unraveled was the day Clady got hurt. But if one of these guys is functional and plays well, you're going to say, oh, now they're going to save $10 million next year. That gives them more money to sign extra players.
Direct question. Today, who would you say will start in all the positions?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's hard because we haven't seen him in pads, Woody. So this is just me guessing, educated guess, but, framing it that way in fairness to me. So somebody doesn't say, so you said this guy was going to start.
Did you want fairness? There's nothing about fairness in life.
Yeah, well, it'd be different in baseball. You actually see him do things that would translate to a game. We don't even see him in pads. They're running around in shorts. So to sit here and say, I have great insight
in fairness to Troy, we're now being fair to you, Troy. Who's going to start in the offensive line?
Right. So let's say Ty Sambralo at left tackle.
Wow.
Left guard, I believe, will be Shelley Smith. Gino Gronkowski will be the center. I do believe you're going to see Max Garcia and or Matt Paradise really challenge him. But to start, Gronkowski. Right guard is clearly Luis Vasquez, and I think right tackle will be Chris Clark. The key is if Sombrello can't handle it, do they go to Schofield or do they then go move Clark and then put Harris in? The tackle positions are just fluid right now.
But Troy,
they really like Sombrello. It would not
Chris,
surprise me if he starts.
Chris Clark struggled at right tackle last year to the point where they took him out of the lineup.
I know, but it was a different offense. That's why I can't. It's apples and oranges. That's everyone said. No, he played great at left tackle in 2013 in a completely different run scheme. The only guys that are going to play, their best five is going to play, and I think their best five is going to end up with Clark at right tackle because I think he'll be better suited at right tackle on this offensive scheme. I could be wrong because you're right. He got benched for a reason. It wasn't because he was playing well. But in this the zone blocking scheme, I believe that they're sensing he'd be better off being one of their best five at right tackle rather than left tackle. And that if it comes down to a tie between he and Ty Sombrello, Sombrello's going to play left tackle because then he becomes the future.
Can we turn to the defense? The defense of the Broncos is being talked about these days as much as the Colorado Rockies are, which means not at all. Nobody's paying attention to it.
I've been pumping them up for the last few weeks.
How do you see the linebacker situation shaking down? We know who, if they're healthy, who two of the linebackers would be, but does the third one matter? Or is this team going to be, and we know the nickel back is going to be, the two other guys, that they're going to go with a nickel back majority of the time. But how's the linebacking core going to shake down, do you think?
Well, again, you're as you said, Woody, they're counting heavily on Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall to be healthy. Danny Trevathan should be healthy in terms of the time frame and recovery from his third knee injury. He should be ready. Brandon Marshall, we're not sure. I mean, because of a Liz Frank injury, you just don't know. But he's more of a question mark for me than Trevathan in terms of availability when camp opens. Todd Davis, they like inside. Really like him. He's the guy that claimed off waivers from the Saints. He's certainly in the mix. Stephen Johnson, we talked to today, he's in that mix. Lamine Barrows is one guy it's hard to get a read on now, but I think he is. Not sure on Corey Nelson. He's more of a nickel guy. But Todd Davis is a name to file away. That if Brandon Marshall is slow in coming back, it would not surprise me at all if Todd Davis starts getting first-team reps. But this defense, Woody, you're right, they're not getting talked about a lot, but the way this offense is set up, if they're struggling along the line and they're struggling offensively and they have to be a little more conservative than they would like, maybe we see them win a couple games 20-17, 17-14. This defense with Wade Phillips at the helm and clearly, just completely driven to pressure the quarterback, I do believe you're going to see this defense win some games for them. Where last year I could argue that the only game I thought the defense won for them was at Kansas City, where they completely changed that game with the way they played. This defense, maybe they do that 2 or 3 times. This defense, on paper, is better than the offense right now because of the uncertainty along the offensive line.
Troy, last thing, I see where Des Bryant, a free agent, is showing up to OTAs for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we've been told that Demaryius Thomas wants to see what happens with the Des Bryant situation before he signs anything with the Broncos. So if Des, a bad boy, is showing up to the Cowboys OTAs, why isn't DT showing up to the Broncos OTAs? And what are you hearing? What's the latest?
Well, it shows me that Des Bryant, they've made some type of progress on his contract, so maybe as a make-good gesture. He's been designated a franchise tag, as you mentioned. As a make-good gesture, maybe he was told by his agent, or he just talked directly to the Cowboys, that, hey, you show up here, that could accelerate it. That's how my read on that situation. Demaryius' case, they've been at a standstill because they've been waiting for Des Bryant. And so things could change fairly quickly. If Des Bryant signs, that could ultimately change Demaryius' situation. But I was told as of earlier this week, Demaryius' situation had not changed. He had no plans to attend functions until they would get to training camp.
All right, Troy, as always, thanks a lot, man. Double duty the last couple of days. A lot going on out there. And we'll read your stuff at denverpost.com. Thanks, Troy.
All right, sounds good, too.
All right, Troy Renck of the Denver Post. That segment sponsored by John Elway Cadillac of Park Meadows, Colorado's #1 Cadillac dealer.